Here is section 1, 760 words, of the script based on the outline and structure we discussed. I used to think boredom was the worst thing that could happen in a marriage. Until I learned it's not boredom, it's the silence that slowly replaces words, the quiet that drowns everything. Daniel still kisses me goodbye every morning, still brings me my coffee exactly the way I like it. But he doesn't see me. Not really. His eyes skim past me like I'm a piece of furniture he's long since memorized. We met in college, both of us young, ambitious, full of dreams. He was charming in a steady, grounded way. I was drawn to that. Life with him felt safe. And for a long time, that was enough. I didn't need passion. I didn't need the kind of drama you see in films. Or at least, that's what I told myself. Last Thursday, I stopped into a cafe after work, mostly to avoid going home too early. I ordered a cappuccino and waited near the counter. That's when I heard my name. Quiet, hesitant. I turned. And everything inside me paused. Ryan. I hadn't seen him in nearly 7 years. The last time, it was raining, I was crying, and he didn't say a word as he walked away. Seeing him now, standing in that cafe like no time had passed, felt like being hit by a wave I wasn't ready for. He smiled. That same crooked smile I used to know so well. My throat went dry. He asked if we could sit for a minute, just to catch up. I could have said no. I should have. But I nodded. We sat by the window. He told me he'd moved back to town for work. Said he hadn't planned on staying long, but something about being back felt right. He looked at me, really looked, like someone reading a book they've missed for years. And I couldn't look away. We talked about safe things, jobs, mutual friends, the city. But there was tension in the air, thin but sharp, like a wire strung too tight. I kept my hands folded on my lap. I didn't mention Daniel. Not because I forgot, I just didn't want to see the look on Ryan's face change. At one point, he leaned in slightly. His voice softened. You look like someone I used to know. But somehow different. My lips parted to say something, but nothing came. Instead, I bit my lip. It wasn't intentional. It was instinct. A reflex from an old life I thought I'd buried. We sat there a little longer, both pretending it was just a coincidence. Just coffee. Just two people catching up. When I finally stood to leave, he said, "It was really good to see you, Em." I nodded, and for a second, I thought he might reach for my hand. But he didn't. I walked out without looking back, but I felt his eyes on me all the way to the door. The air outside was colder than I remembered. Or maybe it was just me. That night, Daniel was home late. I told him I had a long day. He nodded, barely listening. As he scrolled through emails, I sat across from him at the kitchen island and watched him. Really watched him. His hair's thinner now, his focus sharper, his presence more distant. He used to light up when he saw me. Now his expression barely flickers. I wanted to tell him. Not everything. Just something. That I saw someone today who reminded me of myself. That I didn't feel like myself anymore. But I didn't. I smiled when he looked up, then said I was heading to bed. Lying under the covers, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. I could still hear Ryan's voice in my head. Still feel the way his words lingered. Still taste the hesitation I didn't act on. It wasn't an affair. Not yet. It was coffee. Conversation. A shadow of something unfinished. But it was also something else. It was a crack. A tiny fracture in the mirror I held up to my life. A reflection I didn't recognize anymore, and even though I hadn't crossed a line, I knew deep down, I was standing right at the edge of it. Let me know when you're ready for section 2, and I'll continue with the same precision and tone. Here is section 2, 760 words, of the script, continuing seamlessly with the same tone, structure, and precision. I didn't plan to see him again. That's the truth. But sometimes life pushes you where your mind says no and your heart doesn't argue. The next time I ran into Ryan, it was outside the bookstore near my office. He was holding a coffee, smiling like he already knew I'd be there. It felt too perfect to be accidental. I asked him if he was following me. He laughed. Said maybe fate was. We stood on the sidewalk longer than we should have. I told myself it was harmless. Just small talk. Just coincidence. But I wasn't breathing right. My voice felt different around him, lighter, softer. He asked how I'd been, and I lied. I said things were good. He didn't call me out on it, but he looked at me like he already knew. Later that night, I deleted our conversation from my phone. Not because it was wrong, but because if Daniel saw it, I wouldn't know how to explain the feeling behind those words. Ryan texted a few days later. Just a photo of a spot downtown we used to go to. No caption. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, then typed, "You still remember that place?" He replied, "I never forgot anything about you." I didn't answer. But the next day, I found myself there. And so did he. We talked for hours. It was easy. Too easy. He made me laugh in a way I hadn't in years. There was something unspoken between us, like the pause between two notes in a song you used to love. He didn't try to touch me. He didn't need to. The tension did all the work. Claire noticed the change in me before I said anything. We were at her apartment for wine and takeout when she looked at me and said, "You're glowing in a way I don't trust." I laughed it off, but she didn't smile. "Is it someone?" she asked. I shrugged. Then I nodded. "Just once." She set down her glass and sighed. "Be careful, Em. Sometimes we mistake being seen for being loved." Her words stayed with me. But so did Ryan. The texts became more frequent. Not flirty, at least not obviously. But intimate in ways that felt heavier. He'd ask how I was sleeping. What I was reading. If I still dreamed of Paris. I'd tell him yes, and I'd leave out the part where Daniel once promised we'd go and never brought it up again. One afternoon, I met Ryan in his car. It was raining. The windows fogged from the inside. We didn't plan it. It just happened. I slid into the passenger seat and we sat in silence for a few seconds. Then he said, "You always did love the rain." I looked at him, not smiling. "I don't know what I'm doing," I whispered. He reached out and touched a strand of my hair that had fallen over my face. "You're remembering," he said. The moment stretched, filled with everything we didn't say. My heart was loud. My mind was quiet. His hand was still on my cheek. I closed my eyes. He leaned in, slowly, carefully. I didn't stop him. I didn't move. I just let the warmth of his breath meet mine, and when our lips touched, something in me exhaled that I didn't even know I'd been holding. It didn't last long. But it was enough. I pulled away first. My lip was bleeding slightly, bitten out of nerves or guilt or both. I touched it, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. "I can't do this," I said, more to myself than to him. "I know," he replied. "But you didn't say no." I stepped out of the car and into the rain without an umbrella. I didn't look back. But I didn't walk fast either. That night, Daniel asked if I was okay. I said I was tired. He nodded and went back to his laptop. I wanted him to ask more. I wanted him to see something in my eyes and not look away. But he didn't. He never does. In the quiet of our bedroom, I lay next to him, wide awake. My body was here, under the same roof. But my mind was somewhere else. And my heart was split in a way I didn't know how to fix. It wasn't about Ryan. Not entirely. It was about the version of myself that came alive around him. The woman I forgot I used to be. The one who felt I hadn't crossed every line. But some lines don't need to be crossed to shatter something. Let me know when you're ready for Section 3, and I'll deliver the final act with the same precision. Here is Section 3, 760 words, of the script, with a clean continuation, emotional depth, and no repetition. I didn't see Ryan again after that night. He didn't call. I didn't text. It was like we both silently agreed not to touch what we'd already broken open. But silence doesn't erase what's been felt. It just presses it deeper. The next few days felt slow and loud at the same time. Every sound in the house irritated me. Daniel's spoon in his coffee mug, his phone buzzing, the hum of the bathroom fan. I kept thinking maybe he'd look up and notice something in me had shifted. He didn't. His eyes flicked toward me sometimes, but they never stayed long enough. He asked if I wanted to join him for a client dinner. I said no. He didn't question it. Just nodded and grabbed his keys. I watched the door close behind him and realized how easy it had become to hide inside my own home. Ryan's name stayed in my phone, untouched. But his message was still there. I'm still here if you need to feel alive again. I stared at it more times than I'll ever admit. My thumb hovered over it one night, ready to delete. Instead, I turned off the screen. Claire called, asked if I wanted to grab lunch. She was quiet for the first few minutes, then looked at me and said, "Is this going to be a chapter you regret or a turning point?" I didn't answer. She didn't press. That's the thing about her, she doesn't push, but she always sees. I started thinking about the beginning again. Not of Ryan. Of Daniel. The early mornings, the inside jokes, the letters he used to leave in my lunch bag. Somewhere along the way, we became practical. Efficient. Our love turned into a schedule. I blamed time. I blamed work. But mostly, I blamed silence. I tried that night. I made dinner, lit candles, wore the perfume he once told me made him forget everything else. He smiled when he walked in. Said the house smelled amazing. He kissed my forehead, complimented the meal, asked how my day was. I told him it was fine. We ate. We talked about the weather, the renovation we kept putting off, a show he wanted to watch. I waited for something more. It never came. And I didn't have the strength to force it. After he fell asleep, I walked into the living room and sat in the dark. I kept thinking, if love is still here, why does it feel like I'm mourning something? I saw Ryan one last time. It wasn't planned. He was walking out of a store just as I was walking in. Our eyes met, and for a moment, it all came back. The car, the kiss, the pause. He smiled, but not like before. I didn't smile back. He asked if I was okay. I said yes, even though I wasn't sure it was true. He said he'd been thinking about me. I told him I'd been thinking about myself. He nodded like he understood exactly what that meant. I didn't come back to ruin anything, he said. I believed him. I know, I replied. But you reminded me what it felt like to be someone I actually liked. He looked away, then back. So what now? I took a breath. Now I figure out if I'm brave enough to stay, or honest enough to leave. We didn't say goodbye. He just stepped aside, and I kept walking. When I got home, Daniel was on the couch, reading something on his tablet. He looked up, smiled. "You're back early." I nodded, sat next to him, and stared straight ahead. He offered me the blanket. I took it. I still don't know what happens next. I haven't made a decision. I haven't confessed anything. But something's changed. Maybe not between Daniel and me. Maybe just inside me. Some people think infidelity is only about sex. But it's not. It's about absence. About being unseen. About becoming a ghost inside your own skin and reaching for something, anything, that makes you feel real again. I bit my lip when I saw him. Not out of fear, not from pain. It was instinct. A moment my body remembered before my mind could lie. And I didn't tell him to stop because a part of me wanted to remember what it felt like to be wanted, to be chosen, to be known, but now I have to face the part that comes after, the part where I look at what's left and decide whether to keep pretending, or start telling the truth, even if the truth ruins everything. Let me know if you'd like a full narration-ready script version, a text-to-speech voiceover format, or thumbnail title suggestions to match this story. Here is section 4, 760 words. Of the script, continuing the narrative with the same emotional clarity, no repetition, and a to-the-point style. I started watching Daniel more closely. Not because I was suspicious, but because I was searching. For signs. For cracks. For anything to prove that this distance wasn't just me. But he was steady. Predictable. Kind in the way you expect from someone who's lived beside you for years, not in love but in rhythm. We still touched, brief brushes, casual kisses, polite affection. But it felt rehearsed. Like we were actors in a play we no longer cared to perform, mouthing lines from a script we didn't write anymore. One morning, I asked him if he was happy. He looked up from his coffee, caught off guard. "Yeah, I think so." "Why?" I shrugged. "Just wondering." He smiled like that was enough of an answer. But I wasn't asking about him. I was trying to figure out if I was the only one pretending. At work, I caught myself zoning out. Thinking about choices. About consequences. Not just of the kiss, but of every time I stayed silent. Every time I convinced myself I was fine, The guilt wasn't about Ryan. It was about me. About knowing I had slowly drifted into a life that no longer fit, and doing nothing to stop it. Ryan didn't reach out again. I respected that. Or maybe I resented it a little. Because part of me still wanted the escape, even as I tried to convince myself I didn't. I tried to rebuild something with Daniel. Little things. Leaving notes in his coat pocket. Making his favorite dinner. Asking about his day and actually listening. He noticed, in the way people notice extra light in a room they forgot was dim. He appreciated it, but he didn't match it. His gratitude didn't grow into curiosity. One night, I told him I missed us. He paused, looked at me, then said, "We've just been busy. Life gets like that." I wanted to scream. Not because he was wrong, but because he didn't even ask what I meant by missed us. He assumed it was surface level. Something time could patch. He didn't see that I was drowning in a shallow sea. Claire and I met for lunch again. She asked what I was holding on to. I said, the comfort. The history. The idea that maybe I'm being ungrateful. She said, there's a difference between settling and staying. I nodded. But I still wasn't ready. I kept telling myself that people don't just throw away a marriage because of one bad season. But this wasn't a season. This was a slow erosion. A quiet forgetting. Of affection. Of attention. Of urgency. The truth that haunted me most wasn't that I kissed someone else. It was that I didn't regret it, not fully. Because in that moment, I remembered how it felt to be alive. To feel seen. Not just looked at, but noticed. And now I knew that part of me still existed, and it wouldn't go back into hiding. Daniel and I went away for the weekend. A small cabin. Quiet. Peaceful. I thought maybe space would bring us closer. But being alone with him only made the silence louder. We talked about logistics. Groceries. Repairs. What we needed to do when we got back. But not once did he ask, "What are you feeling?" Not once did he say, "Are we okay?" And I didn't ask either. Because I already knew the answer. On the drive home, I watched the trees blur past the window. I wondered how many people were in cars just like ours, sitting inches apart, feeling miles away. That night, as we unpacked, Daniel said, "Thanks for making this weekend happen. It was nice to reset." I smiled. But I felt nothing. Because I hadn't reset. I had confirmed. I finally opened my journal, something I hadn't done in years. I wrote everything. About Ryan. About the kiss. About the silence in my marriage. I didn't censor it. I didn't soften it. I just wrote. And by the end, I wasn't crying, I was calm. Claire. I don't know if I'll leave. I don't know if Daniel and I can find our way back. But I know I won't keep pretending that love is present just because the routine is. There are some betrayals that happen quietly, not with other people, but within ourselves, every time we shrink, silence, or stay small to keep peace. And I finally realized, the worst kind of infidelity isn't to another person. It's to the truth you keep from yourself. Let me know when you're ready for section 5, or if you'd like title ideas, description text, or voiceover formatting for this series.